So this video is going to deal with making selections in Photoshop. One of the powerful things, and you have great flexibility, is making selections in Photoshop via a number of different tools, and I'll go over them briefly, focusing on each one. I'll make another video focusing on how you can modify selections, and that will be made shortly. So first probably key one is cropping an image. So that's simply just cropping down the image size. The next key thing is probably selecting, say, the background or the skier. In this case, we're going to select the skier and remove it from the background. And so to go through and do that, there's multiple options. Often you'll be making selections. The most common one is probably the rectangular marquee tool. If something is linear and rectangular, you can make those quick selections. So I'll just cut that out there. That's not going to be useful for this design. And so depending on what you import will be dependent upon which of these tools is going to be best used. So some will work brilliantly for one image, but then they won't work well for others. Best to bring in images that have a shallow depth of field, and so the background is blurred out, so then Photoshop and the tools can be able to select the hard edge, or finding an image with a contrasting background color, because that's how I guess the tools sort of work. They identify the tints and shades and where it varies, and to make those selections. So products is really easy to select out of a background, but then if you're thinking about selecting an animal in its natural habitat, can be really difficult, because obviously patterns in nature and camouflage has evolved because of that. And so I tend to use magnetic lasso is really quite a strong tool, and it identifies, I'll quickly make this selection, it identifies the key areas, and so you can use that really quickly. If there's areas where the color is quite similar to the background, so here where it's becoming blue, if I press Alt whilst holding it, it goes to free lasso, and then I'll release it, and you can see it changes there. I'll try that just once more. It goes free, and then I release Alt, and it goes back. So I'll make that quick selection, and you're just going back to make the selection, and then therefore I've made that selection. I'll remove that. You can see when I've deleted that, it has feathered it, so it's not a hard edge selection. So I've got the feathering at 20 pixels, so 20 pixels around. It's really nice clear feathering. Feathering is really good. I'll talk about it later in another video, but if you're blending two images together. The next tool, so freehand lasso, that's just a basic selection tool with the lasso. I use that quite often. Polygon I don't use very often. It's pretty straightforward. Control D. And then last of all, there's the magic wand tool, which identifies different colors, and I hold shift and it's going to add to it those selections, so it's often really useful, especially if all the colors are very similar or distinguished. Sorry, if they're too similar, it can be quite difficult to use. And you can see with the magic wand, it's averaging colors 11 pixels by 11 pixels, so you can go through and change that. Key thing to change there is a tolerance. So if I do 3, it's only selecting 3 shades either side of that selection there. If I change it to 50, it's going to select a lot more different varying colors. The other key thing to do is sample all layers. Have that on. If you're using multiple layers, it's going to be able to go through and sample all those. The other key one is the quick selection tool, so I'll just deselect that, and that's used more like a brush tool where you can go through and select areas here, and if I make a mistake, it doesn't matter, I can correct that later on. So this is quite a useful tool for selecting different areas, especially around this sort of the patterns on the shirts or the bibs. So that's made a pretty good job of that. And I often will cut it back just to see what I've got. I haven't got that boot yet. Not too sure if I've deselected or I've selected it. Done the wrong way. So if I need to add to a selection, I'm going to press Shift, and you can see it's changing to a plus. And if I press Alt, if I press Alt, it's going to be a minus. Otherwise, you can play around with these these tools up here. So I need to add to it. I can select there, and it will add to that selection, or I can, and that's for all the selection tools. So Alt, it's going to subtract away, and I can make that cut. And they're the main tools you're going to be going through and using for selections. Thank you.